All right, Adam, how many years have you done this?
This will be my 16th year.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you've seen a lot of people come through Vivint, and your group has had just crazy success the last few years, especially. When you're looking at a manager that is the top 20% versus, let's just say, below 50%, what is the difference of a top manager versus a lower performing manager? What is a top manager getting in preseason about recruiting and their schedule that is not clicking for a manager that's not in that tier?
So I would say that the biggest thing that I see is these guys don't miss things. They never miss a team hangout. They never miss a Wednesday night. Their team has big attendance on Wednesday nights. Not big in terms of, some guys don't even have a big team, but big percentage of their team. They have a high percentage of their team showing up. And then most importantly, they never miss a Saturday. So they're always showing up on Saturday. They always have rookies at the office on Saturday, and they always are taking shadows on Saturdays. And I think that those guys, when they just remain consistent in the program that we already have, that's already figured out, the results follow. And these guys, I mean, anyone in the top percentage of managers is usually vets, but sometimes it's rookies. And for example, Sebastian Alarcon last year, one of our top managers, I think he was number 2 right behind you. He didn't miss anything. And so to me, it's just like the guys that stay consistent on the schedule are the guys that get the results. The other guys, they don't stay consistent on the schedule. They think they are, but they have excuses all the time.
Sure. So I think if you look at attendance, I think there's a lot of people that kind of disregard attendance. But if I look at all the top people that I know, they just show up to everything. And I think in a lot of circumstances, they're not even the best performer necessarily. They're super consistent. But why do you think there's some managers that kind of disregard the attendance? They look at the Saturdays like, well, I got to show up for most of these, but as long as I get like 65% of these Saturdays, I should be good. Or, the Wednesday night, if I pop in for 10 minutes, say hi to a couple people and take off, nobody notices, no big deal.
Yeah, I think they just don't fully understand the consequences of their actions. And I think that they're in their mind, they're able to justify whatever it is that they're doing as being worth it, or worth missing or cutting out early for whatever it is that they're doing. They can justify that. And it's combining that with not understanding the consequences of their actions. I think that's the reason that happens.
So you've crushed it in Miami building a culture. Do you have any way of oversimplifying how to build a culture for somebody that may not have that?
I think that kind of goes back to the first question. It's like, if you want to build a healthy culture, a culture that breeds success, you have to lead by example yourself. And when I say lead by example, I don't just mean sell, which you obviously do have to sell more than everyone on your team. But I mean, you need to be the example in your attendance as well. And if you do that and you lead by example in your attendance, your team is going to follow, and that just becomes the norm.
What do you think about managers going out? So let's say they knock Friday and Saturday, but they're driving themselves out personally and they're not taking shadows, which again, I think this goes on a lot.
The bigger question there for me is, why do they not have a shadow? And I think the answer to that, I think the reason why Phoebe has a great diagnosis of this, but to me, the biggest reason why someone doesn't have recruits is because they are seeking comfort, and recruiting for them, knocking for them is their comfort zone. They've become comfortable in turf. They've become comfortable. They can go out and sell and feel accomplished, right? But they are not necessarily great at recruiting yet, or they don't have the confidence yet in recruiting. They haven't grown comfortable with it. So what they're doing is they're seeking comfort rather than seeking discomfort. And if they were able to just go and realize that, hey, I'm uncomfortable here, so I need to go do it, then they would get good at it quickly. But what they do is they just convince themselves to seek comfort. They never grow, they never recruit, and they just go knock.
Interesting. So this is an analogy I've thought of a number of times, and I heard this years ago. But if a cop shows up to a scene and there's a shootout, he's got to get out of the car. And the cops, there's like insider lingo. It's something like, a cop car is a coffin in a shooting. And I think that that's kind of similar to how managers spend their time in preseason, is that the house or them being in their apartment or whatever it may be feels very comfortable. But if they're not out and about, they're not going to just magically find recruits sitting on their sofa watching Netflix. And I just think it's a big disconnect. So one of the things Tim used to say is he'd say, hey, per week, I got to have at least 4 interviews per week, or he's like, I'd be freaking out.
Yeah.
What do those numbers look like? Do you think that's fair? Do you think that should be more or less?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tim, he solo managed almost 4,000 accounts 2 times. So I think that, he's definitely right what that is. For me, it was always like, there's that metric where like I'd say at least 3 interviews a week, but yeah, 4 is even better, right? Um, but I was going to say, when it comes to Saturday, if I don't have at least 2 or 3 shadows in my management group, like I'm freaking out. I would be very worried about that, because the truth is, if you have 3 shadows showing up on Saturday, not all of them are going to work out. So good thing you have at least 3 to hopefully net a recruit out of that. But if you have 0 shadows on a Saturday, you can essentially look at your week as, okay, I had 24 weeks from November 1st until summer. I just wasted a week. A week is gone, and I did not add any value to my team or to my empire that I'm building.
I'm not sure everybody gets that the goal of the manager qualifications is not just to hit the manager qualifications goal personally. It's to hit that goal with a shadow or 2 shadows that you're taking out consistently to be able to hit that. If
That's
you hit
the
that
only
just
way
alone,
you're building your team. If not, you're basically a rep that day, or even that week, I would say. It's like, to me, the most important part of recruiting a rep to summer, honestly, is not the interview. It's not what you said to him on campus. It's the day that you meet with him at the office to brief him, and then you take him out to shadow. I think that is the pivotal moment when someone decides to do this job or not. You can be the best interview pitcher in the world, because let's be real, the interview is a pitch. You can have the best interview pitch in the world, but if you don't take guys on the doors and prove to them that this is a viable career opportunity, and show them that, hey, people actually buy this, it's something people are already interested in, and our method works, and you can make a lot of money doing this in real life, until you prove that to them, everyone in the back of their mind at the end of the interview is like, yeah, it sounds nice, but there's some level of doubt in every single person's brain on if this is going to work out for them or not. And when you can go out there and prove it to them as fast as possible, you want to have the minimum time between the end of the interview until the time that you go out and shadow. That's the most important part of this job.
How do you create stickiness in the interview? How are you building that relationship, or are there any tangible pieces of advice that you could give while that's going on? They're in the office, they're brand new. Like, what does the setup look like? How are you handing them a fruit smoothie when they sit down? Like, is there anything like tangible actions? Like, one of the things Tim would say is, hey, as soon as they come in, introduce them to 3 people. Hey, Adam, where are you from? How long you been here? What did you make last year? Do you have anything else that you could contribute to that? Like, to create that environment?
I think in the interview, you obviously want to walk around. Hopefully it's at a time when there's people there. If it's not a big deal. But in the actual interview, you want to make sure that they know this is a very legitimate company. We should be very proud of how legitimate and how amazing of an organization we work for. That alone speaks huge these days compared to back when I was recruiting reps. I want to make sure that they understand that we have a very competitive offer, and that in general, the vast majority, over 90% of the homes that we go to already have something comparable, or they already are interested in what we offer. So it's not like we're convincing people to get something that they don't think that they need. We're going to areas where people already want this stuff. I think if you're recruiting someone to sell a product or sell an industry, they need to believe that the industry that they're in is an industry that people are actually interested in. On the customer side, if the rep believes that, hey, I definitely could sell this product because people want it, that's going to make it a lot more sticky. So I want them to feel like that the people that we're talking to, it's a vast majority of them are already interested in what we have. So I'll talk a lot about takeovers in the interview, explaining that, hey, we're going to houses where people have our competitor. We're offering them more value. We charge a little bit more money per month, but we give them way more stuff than what that difference in price is. And so we're switching them over. We're not convincing them to get something that they don't believe in. It's not like we're convincing someone to get cable TV and they don't believe in watching television. We're going to someone who has cable. We're adding a few more channels for just a few more bucks a month and switching them over to us.
I haven't thought about that in like 10 plus. My very first interview, that's what the guy had told me. He's like, hey, by the way, here's our deal. We're going to homes that already have this, and we're just switching the name and giving them a better product. I was like, oh my gosh, this seems so easy.
I can do that.
Yeah, I was like, they're already paying. You mean they're already paying for this? I was like, yeah.
They already want it.
It
Yeah.
clicked. I love that you said that, because I've not thought about that for so long. That's actually a really good point, is that to hit on the takeover as the main part of the sale, which that's also a huge contributor.
It's actually
of
true,
accounts.
though.
Correct. But that's a way bigger aha moment for these guys, and be like, man, I got to go convince somebody to get something that they're not familiar with or not paying for. So I think that's awesome you said that.
Well, think about it, like, one more thing. Like, sure, maybe the commission on a timeshare sale is really good. But if the guy on the other side of the table doesn't believe he's going to be able to convince anyone to buy it, it doesn't matter how big the commission is. So the rep must believe that this is something that people want and that they could definitely sell this to people. At that point, it all comes together.
God, that's an awesome point. So you take a guy out shadowing. What is if you were looking at their shadow experience as a pie chart, is it? I think one of the things that people don't get is they're like, all right, I just need to show this guy a sale, but they need to realize that when they're picking up the guy from the office and they're driving to turf with them, if they sit in that car and just don't talk, there's no music playing, it's just boring. They get out to turf, they're like, hey, just shut up and take notes, and
Oh
it's
my God.
boring. And even if they see a sale,
Couldn't imagine this.
but I think that's what goes on in some people's minds. They're like, hey, I need to show a sale. But they're not realizing that they got to create a fun environment. They got to be blasting music on the way to turf. They got to be talking to them in between the doors, whatever it may be. But they need to build some sort of relationship. But if you looked at the shadow experience for brand new rookie, what percent is like tangible? Okay, I saw the sale. And what percent is developing some friendship with them along the way?
I would say that in the first shadow, 50% of the value on this pie chart is in giving them belief that people actually want this, people actually buy this, and that this is a viable career opportunity. Making it real, making your interview what you talked about, putting it in real life. That's 50% of the value. Contrary to most people, I believe that almost zero of the value is actually in sales training in the first shadow. I don't think that the shadows remember like how to drop prices.
They're not getting any of that.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing. So it's all 50% is proof of concept, proving that the job actually works and we can do it and I can teach you how to do it, proving that people are nice, all that, like just that it's real, right? And then I think the other half would be building rapport, which is what you just said. And in the building rapport, I just think it's really important to connect with them on a level of, something outside of the job if you can. If you can't, it's okay. And then also to just like make an impression on them that you are young, you have your stuff together, you've achieved a lot for your age. You don't brag about it. You're just making this impression. You're making it clear, which is easy to do because you're a manager and you are way above average for your age. Let's be real. So I think making an impression on them that like you're responsible, you have your stuff together, you've done really well here, these kind of things, and then just connecting with them on a personal level so they think you're an actual good person that cares about them. I think that's the other 50% value.
Okay. I hear a lot of people talking about, they'll go get food with them after, get a smoothie, but I think it's a great idea. All right, so last question, kind of geared towards the same question I just asked, but more direct at the interview. So in my earlier years when I do interviews, I was always a money guy, especially in my earlier years, where I would get in the interview, I'd talking about money, 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 money. But I think that was a little bit short-sighted because it's almost like people speak different languages, and maybe money for some people is like speaking German, and then the experience for other people is like speaking Spanish, and the sales learning and leadership and resume building is French. And so you don't really know who you're sitting across with when you sit down with them. So what are the general feelings or the general elements of an interview? So obviously one's going to be like money, another one's going to be like sales and experience, but do you have any other opinions of what else should be woven into the overall feeling that they get in the interview?
Yeah, I had a very generic structure that I followed every time. I don't remember them right now, but in my interview, I started off with like 12 questions that I had tailored to really figure out who I'm talking to. I wanted to know if they were in a serious relationship because we travel. I wanted to know if they had another job already because now they're sitting with me. So if they did have another job, I would always ask them, why are you here? If you work there, why are you here? And ideally, I wanted them to say that, they had some perception that this is better than what they're doing, or that they hate their job, which is perfect. if that's what, we're talking about here. Sure. But I don't specifically know how I figured out what language they were speaking. I tried to make sure that my interview had a broad range of appealing to resume building, of appealing to experience in the field, because at the end of the day, for whatever career you go on to have, you're going to need experience if you really want to get the top job, and you can't just have a degree because a million people have degrees. And so what's going to separate you from the other people that have the same degree as you? This is the experience that's going to shine on your resume. So I talked about that a lot, especially when talking to college students. I think that hits pretty hard with them. I wanted to make sure that I talked about how legitimate the company was, because at the end of the day, people, if they're going to commit themselves to this being their career, I think knowing that it's very legitimate is a huge bonus there, a huge factor that we have in our favor now, which we didn't, a decade ago, at least publicly speaking. And then obviously I did talk about money, because at the end of the day, it is a job and that's why we work here. So I definitely hit on money, but based on who I'm talking to, the way that they're dressed, the way that they talk, the questions that they ask me, I get a feel for which one of those is probably more important for them at that point. I think you could incorporate a question. Why do you think most people do this job? Is it for the resume building, the experience, or for the money? You could put something like that in your interview.
It's like asking a hot button question in a sales.
Exactly.
You know where to direct this.
And then when they answer, it's like, okay, that's the angle to take with this person.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Adam.